I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back.
Liberation Day. That's what President Trump has declared today as he announced a federal takeover of D.C.'s police force without notifying city leaders. Thank you for joining us on the News at 4. I'm Simone D'Alba. This morning, President Trump declared a public safety emergency, federalized D.C.'s police, and announced 800 National Guard troops will be deployed. He is placing MPD under the control of the Attorney General Pam Bondi for 30 days, invoking Section 740 of the D.C. Home Rule Act. Section 740 is a rarely used provision, granting the president emergency powers over D.C.'s local government in extreme situations like public order breakdown or local government failure. But here's the twist. The mayor and the police chief were completely caught off guard. They were expecting a National Guard announcement, not a full federal takeover. As President Trump's plan rolls out, backlash is already mounting. Today, Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton and U.S. Senator Chris Van Hollen announced they will reintroduce their legislation to grant the district full control over the D.C. National Guard and Metropolitan Police. This historic news could hold the power to impact D.C. residents in a major way. That's why we've got team coverage from every angle, looking at how council and neighbors are reacting. And we want to get started with our chief investigative reporter, Eric Flack, who's really unpacking the key details of the president's plan. And Flack, the president signed 2 executive orders this morning, really putting this all into motion.
And it put it into action very quickly, Simone. The president declared a formal public safety emergency and announced that Attorney General Pam Bondi would take command of the Metropolitan Police Department. President Donald Trump said he will use a provision in the Home Rule Act to put the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under federal control, deploying 500 federal agents to D.C., including the FBI, ATF, and DEA, among others, to fight crime. Video of those agents patrolling the streets of D.C. already surfacing overnight. The president is also deploying 800 National Guard troops to the streets of D.C.
Our capital city has been overtaken by violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals, roving mobs of wild youth, drugged-out maniacs and homeless people. And we're not going to let it happen anymore. We're not going to take it.
D.C.'s police crime data website shows violent crime is down 26% compared to last year. And over the weekend, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser told MSNBC it's at historic lows.
Their nation's capital is among the most beautiful and best cities in the world. It's well run. I just think that's not the most efficient use of our guard.
But the president questioned the reliability of the district's numbers and claimed his administration's data showed per capita the murder rate here in the nation's capital is worse than international cities like Bogota, Mexico City, and Islamabad. MPD has used a citywide curfew for teens to combat problems with young people roving, fighting, and causing mayhem, often caught on video and posted to social media. And the president cited other high-profile crimes targeting victims in his orbit, including the 2023 stabbing of a staffer from Senator Rand Paul's office, the 2024 carjacking murder of a father and husband in his administration, and most recently the assault of a former Doge worker. As evidence, D.C.'s crime problem has reached extreme levels.
Not only are we stopping the crime, we're going to clean up the trash and the graffiti and the grime and the dirt and the broken marble panels and all of the things they've done to hurt this city.
By law, the president's federal takeover of the D.C. Police Department lasts up to 30 days, although it can be extended by Congress, something President Trump said he would call on Republican members of Congress to do. Simone, the president also said the district isn't doing enough to prosecute criminals, especially juvenile offenders.
Well, that's exactly what we wanted to talk about, because we've been talking about this perception of reality, versus actually what's taking place, right? And so that was something that they talked about in relation to juvenile crime.
Yeah, and the conversation kind of moved over to the prosecutor's office. In fact, the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Janine Pirro, doubled down, stepping to the podium and calling out D.C. Attorney General Brian Schwab in his office.
These kids understand that the jurisdiction is through the State Attorney General, Brian Schwab. I did a poster of the young man from Doge who was beaten bloody with a severe concussion, a broken nose. And then I did a poster of what happens to those kids, because I can't arrest them, I can't prosecute them. They go to family court, and they get to do yoga and arts and crafts. Enough. It changes today.
A spokesperson from the OAG's office pointed to their own data showing last year the office prosecuted over 90% of homicide and attempted homicide cases, 87% of carjacking cases, almost 86% of gun possession cases, and about 79% of robbery cases, as well as 88% of violent assault cases, which takes us to AG Schwab posting this to X. The administration's actions are unprecedented, unnecessary, and unlawful. We are considering all of our options and will do whatever is necessary to protect the rights and safety of district residents.
You know, the next thing we're going to be watching is the push-pull between local and federal. We just saw the mayor come out talking about how she said Chief Pamela Smith is in charge of the MPD. Meanwhile, we saw the president earlier very clearly saying Attorney General Pam Bondi would be head of the MPD. So
yeah, and we're about to find out who's truly in charge of DC Police very soon.
Boy, are we. Eric Flack reporting for us today. Thank you.
All right.
Well, hundreds of people rallied steps away from the White House this morning as President Trump was announcing Attorney General Pam Bondi would take charge of the Metropolitan Police Department. Our Melissa Kim was at that rally. She's joining us live from DuPont Circle, where another is scheduled for this evening. There's a lot of opinions, a lot of people who really want to have their voices heard in all of this, Melissa.
Yes, Simone, you're absolutely right. Right now, we're steps away from DuPont Circle, as you can see behind me. Pretty routine right now for 4 o'clock on a Monday afternoon. But earlier today, over near the White House, hundreds of people, no matter their age, their background, or what neighborhood they were from, chanted, sang, and held signs, all for one cause: to free DC, as they said. This all happening as the president said he would deploy the National Guard in the district, as well as take control of the MPD due to what he's calling rising crime rates. The crowd booed as that announcement was made, and several people told me that DC should be treated equally to other states, and President Trump should not have jurisdiction over how the district governs itself.
I grew up in the military. I've always been proud of America, and this is the first time that I'm really scared of the direction our country is headed.
I can sense some emotion in your voice. Why?
I have grandchildren, and I don't want them to grow up in a fascist country.
I'm alarmed at Trump's escalation of putting boots on the ground and threats to bring the National Guard in. We don't turn our armies in on our citizenry.
And as you can hear there from those folks, a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety amongst a lot of people that live in the district right now. Now, Free DC, that group that put on that rally earlier, they're encouraging Washingtonians to come outside at 8 o'clock in the evening, make noise and get loud for about 5 minutes for as long as this, what they're calling occupation of DC by the federal government, is happening. Meanwhile, again, we are expecting a rally here at DuPont Circle around 5 o'clock. We'll, of course, be live here in the next hour to bring you any more updates. But for now, we're live at DuPont Circle this evening. I'm Melissa Kim, WUSA 9.
We heard the mayor today saying democracy is tenuous and saying that, emphasizing the need for statehood in D.C. Melissa Kim reporting for us tonight. Thank you. Meanwhile, President Trump's plans for D.C. police surprised many in the district, including some of the city's leaders. Sources inside the Wilson building and MPD say while Mayor Muriel Bowser and Police Chief Pamela Smith were prepared for an announcement about the National Guard, they didn't know that the president would federalize the police force. Our Lionel Donovan is at the Wilson building now, where the mayor and police chief just wrapped up a news conference less than an hour ago. You were in that room. Lionel, good evening.
Good evening. Like you were saying, the mayor just stopped speaking about 15 minutes ago. She says at this point she will be following the law. No real plans beyond that. However, she did make it clear that Pamela Smith is still the chief of police in D.C. Now, as you were saying this morning, President Trump announced that the MPD would be under federal control. The president said that he would be invoking Section 740 of Home Rule in order to make that happen. He also announced that 800 200 National Guard members would be deployed to, quote, help it reestablish law, order, and public safety in D.C., end quote. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said the Guard would hit the streets of D.C. within the week, and up to 200 soldiers could be supporting law enforcement at any given time. However, it was not made clear where they would be placed or if they would be armed. In response, Mayor Bowser outlined how D.C. is uniquely vulnerable to these kinds of federal actions.
My message to residents is this. We know that access to our democracy is tenuous. That is why you have heard me and many Washingtonians before me advocate for full statehood for the District of Columbia. We are American citizens. Our families go to war. We pay taxes and we uphold the responsibilities of citizenship. And while this action today is unsettling and unprecedented, I can't say that given some of the rhetoric of the past, that we're totally surprised.
Chairman Comer, the chairman of the House Oversight.
Now, as you were saying earlier, this announcement has gotten a lot of pushback from D.C. council members, along with D.C. Congressional Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton. They've released statements throughout the day. I'll have more on what they've had to say at 5. But for now, we're live at the Wilson Building. Lionel Donovan, WUSA 9.
All right, Lionel, live for us at the Wilson Building again. Thank you. This afternoon, we also heard from the D.C. Police Union. It says it supports the president's actions in part. The chairman released a statement saying, quote, the temporary federal takeover is a necessary step to stabilize the situation, but it's not a long-term solution. The real path forward lies in addressing the root causes of the MPD's challenges, particularly the need for adequate staffing and the reversal of harmful legislation.